Okay, so good morning, everyone again. So yesterday we had looked at what are those different transportation or absorption processes for the water, and like again, I'm not going back to the level of the structure of the root and so on, but yeah, just to quickly revise, these were the different processes, and we had looked at the imbibition process, that is a surface phenomena where the water is getting absorbed through the surface attraction, and usually happens with the colloid like molecule, which are hydrophilic in nature. So that way the water is getting adsorbed or absorbed through different mechanisms, and it stays with that particular colloid molecule. Now moving forward with respect to what are those different factors which will affect the imbibition process. Now,
Sir, could you just go back to one slide?
yeah.
Just a second, just a second. Fine. That's all.
So there are various factors which can affect the imbibition process. Now you can simply imagine that if there is more pressure, that is the first point, which is pressure. So if there is more pressure, more water will get absorbed because water will be pushed onto the surface of whatever that colloid particle is, whether it's seed or any other structure within the plant. So that way, more pressure, more imbibition. Texture of the imbibant, that is texture of the colloid or that solid particle which is absorbing water, in that case, uh, more depending on the surface area, depending on the texture, that is whether it is smooth, whether it is rough, the imbibition process will be different, right? If it is smooth, the surface area is relatively less. If it is kind of rough, then the surface area is relatively higher, and that way the texture would matter in the process of imbibition. I hope you are able to imagine all these processes, because that is a mere physical phenomenon, and there is nothing more to explain in that until and unless we go to that level of the molecules and then try to explain what exactly happened. But we need not go into the physics of it as such. pH of the medium, again depending on what is the surface pH of the imbibant and what is the pH of the solution or the medium, depending on if they are acid, then it will just matter with respect to whether it is causing ionization at that particular pH of the solid molecules, and if not, then it will be just liquid medium which will cause more and more absorption. So this has something to do with what we called as ionization potential of the molecules within the water or within the solvent. So if more ionization, then more absorption, which is directly related to the pH of the medium. If it is less ionization, that there is less imbibition, and again it is also related to the pH of the medium. So that way the pH of the medium will affect, and you can simply imagine, like if it is an acid base type of reaction, what would happen to the two component, whether it is on the colloid molecule and in the solvent, that does not matter, but still the acid base type of reaction would remain similar. They will always have affinity towards each other to neutralize the pH. So that way also you can think. And the fourth point, that is the affinity of the imbibant for the imbibant. Affinity as in general hydrophilic or hydrophobic affinity or polar affinity, that is positive and negative charge and so on. So, or the acid base affinity, that also is part of this overall affinity component of the imbibant as well as the imbibate. So these are the four major factors which would affect the process of imbibition. Again, there are something like concentration of the water or concentration of the colloid particle and so on. How many colloid particles are present in the whole system? System as in again the whole. Let's say we are talking of a beaker, and within that we have colloid particles. So beaker becomes a system. So that way, there are various other factors as well. But again, we need not study all of them. We just need to understand what could affect in general to the process of imbibition. So whether we want to facilitate it or whether we want to oppose it, we should know of these factors. So that is the purpose of understanding this. Then in case of imbibition in plants, there are various processes. Like for example, imbibition causes swelling of the seeds that we have already seen. Even in natural course of action, when the seed is about to germinate, one of the process that is most important for germination of seed is the imbibition. Now, you might have seen, like if you soak, let's say a wheat or rice or any of these grains that you have at home, you soak it in water and then it causes sprouting. But if you keep it dry, then it doesn't sprout. Simple reason is because imbibition happens in these seeds when you put them in water. That is ultimately leading to swelling and then the germination. Excuse me. And that further will release in breaking of the testa. Testa is nothing but the outermost covering of the seed, which is little hard, right? So when that will break, then only the sprout can come out of those seeds. So that is the one of the advantage of this imbibition process, or where does this imbibition happen in plant. Secondly, like I already explained, in the initial steps of seed germination, that is when the sprout has to come out, more and more water is required. So more and more cells will keep absorbing water. They become turgid and they ultimately allow that sprout to push through the testa, and that is how it keeps growing like into a tree or a plant. The water moves into the ovules, which are ripening into the seeds by imbibition. Now, this is when the sexual reproduction happens within the flowering plants. Like what happens is, the whatever water is there within the flower structure around the ovule, that ovule will absorb the water and it will cause ripening into the seed. So this is again connected to your first and second point, and that way it leads to the seed germination at the end. But the first process is the water is moving inside into the ovules, then the swelling of the seeds will happen, then it will break the testa, and then it will cause the seed germination. And also, imbibition is dominant in the initial stage of water absorption by roots. So when the roots are present in the soil, obviously soil has some moisture content, and that particular seed or that particular plant roots may not have much of water content compared to the soil water level, and that way the water will go and be imbibed into the root hair structure, and that way the water will be pulled upward in the plant structure. So these are the general processes in which are relevant to the imbibition within the plants. Any quick questions here in the imbibition? I hope imbibition is clear, factors are clear, and what are the uses. These are the three main points that we need to remember in this whole imbibition topic.
So by imbibition, basically, water is literally just circulated in the whole of the plant, right?
No, the imbibition is only water is getting absorbed onto the surface. That is imbibition. That further movement of water is a different process.
So it's only water absorption by the root.
Yeah, by the root or by the seeds or by any structure of the plant, which causes swelling of that particular structure by only a surface attraction phenomena. That is imbibition.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. I must clarify, when we talk of all these processes, we always tend to tell that what is the end result. That does not mean like I just pointed out that transport of water throughout the plant is not imbibition, but that is the end goal, right? So imbibition is only surface phenomena, only the surface absorption. It can happen with the stem cell, it can happen with the leaf cell, or it can happen with the roots as well. But that after the roots are absorbing water or after the leaf is absorbing water onto the surface, that further process, where does the water go after that absorption process, that is secondary phenomenon. Yeah. So for imbibition, it's only the first part of this whole process. Okay, so then moving on to the second process, that is diffusion. Again, yesterday we had a small discussion about this process of diffusion, and most of you are aware what is diffusion in general. So diffusion, if you have to define, it is the movement of molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration, like across the concentration gradient. Concentration gradient we call something is at higher concentration and something is at lower concentration. That difference in concentration, we call it concentration gradient. Gradient, it's like stepwise increase or decrease. That is gradient. So in this case, whenever there is increase in concentration or decrease in concentration, that is the gradient. And because of this gradient, usually the uh, diffusion occurs. Now, one of the most important thing with diffusion, and that is also a difference between diffusion and osmosis, which is the next process we are going to see, is diffusion is movement of molecules, that is solute molecules. I hope you know the concept of solute, solvent, and solution. Like for example, if I can give you an example, let's say we take water in a beaker, we pour salt or sugar in this water. So the salt or sugar is going to dissolve completely in the water solution. So water is the solvent, sugar or salt is called as solute, which are the molecules, and the whole system, that is sugar syrup or salt solution, that is the solution. And so there is solution, there is solvent, and there is solute. So we are going to use these three terminologies quite often in most of these processes.
Sir,
Hmm.
have you just asking? Have you denied access to the Google Drive?
Sorry.
To the Google Drive slide for this chapter?
Huh?
Have you denied access to us because I can't access it?
I don't think so. But yesterday, like I had mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it in your class, I changed certain settings. So I don't know if that has led to no access, but I can see Janvi accessing. So uh,
Acha,
you should also
fine.
have the access. It's the same class that I have put. Okay, so that is the diffusion process, that is movement of molecules and not of the solvent. When it is the movement of solvent molecule, it is totally different process. When we talk of movement of molecules, which are usually less in number compared to solvent molecule, right? So that is the uh, diffusion process. So it usually happens with a concentration gradient. That means there has to be difference in the concentration of the two components that we are going to study about the diffusion. Otherwise, diffusion cannot happen. So one of the example that is shown here in the diagram is, you can see a hand with the dropper, and which is going to put a drop of the dye molecules, which are shown in pink, in the water, right? And you can see this individual water molecule. Now the diagram is just the representation. Again, water molecules, they are not usually this far. You will always have quite a few water molecule next to each other, but this is just the representation to show. And when you drop a die of molecule, this area where the drop is now, that is the area of high concentration, and this rest of the water is the area of low concentration with respect to the die molecules. Yeah. So this is the higher concentration of the dye. This is almost no concentration, that is the lower concentration of the dye. So it will start diffusing from higher concentration to lower concentration, and it will spread out equally throughout this water, which is called as equilibrium. That is the number of dye molecules, or rather the all these dye molecules, they are spaced out in whole of the water throughout the system, that is called as equilibrium. And this equilibrium is achieved due to the concentration gradient and the diffusion process. Okay, so that is the movement of these solute molecules or the movement of the dye molecules in this case, and that is what is known as diffusion. Now it is like very important process in most of the living beings. How? Because diffusion will help in the movement of substances in and out of the cell. So for simplest example, now though we are talking of the plant physiology, I will give you an example from the animal physiology. That is, let's say uh, that nutrition, that whatever you are eating is getting digested in the stomach, it goes into the intestine. From intestine it is getting absorbed, right? That is the movement of solute molecule, let's say a protein or carbohydrate or sugar for that matter, or glucose simply, right? So there is lot of glucose in the intestinal tract. That intestinal tract has lot of blood capillaries. So this glucose molecule will cross the intestinal membrane and will get transferred across the intestinal lining and will enter into the blood circulation. Now this process is like intestine, like the inner part of the intestine has higher concentration of the glucose. Blood has comparatively lower concentration of glucose. So concentration gradient is established and the glucose will transfer across the intestinal wall, which is acting as a membrane barrier in this process, and it will allow the glucose to get into blood. So that way, and until and unless this gradient is reaching a stage of equilibrium, the glucose will be absorbed throughout. So that is how the diffusion works in case of animal, and same is the case with the plant also. Imagine a leaf is synthesizing glucose by the process of photosynthesis. It is going to get transported across the phloem tissue throughout the plant structure, and then the neighboring cells, they have to absorb this glucose through the process of diffusion, because phloem will have higher concentration, neighboring tissue of the phloem will have lower concentration. Again there is a concentration gradient. So from phloem, glucose will get transferred to the neighboring cells so that they can also get glucose and make their own energy. So that way this diffusion process is very important. I guess I already explained this point. The molecules move from a region of higher concentration to region of lower concentration until the concentration gradient becomes equal throughout. That is the stage of equilibrium. Throughout, all the molecules, they are equispaced within that particular system. So that is how the diffusion works. Before I go into the factors, does anyone have any question here in the process of diffusion? Okay, so if no question, then we'll move forward with factors affecting diffusion. Now, there are quite a few factors, of course, which can affect the rate, that is how fast the diffusion is happening, and the extent, that is how much of the diffusion is happening. Rate and extent, these are two different things. How fast is it? Let's say if you have kept like in the case of intestinal absorption only, let's say we say that glucose is getting absorbed in first 5 minutes, right? That is, the rate is very fast. And if it is getting absorbed in 20 minutes, the same amount of glucose, then we say the rate is slow. And the extent is how much of the glucose is getting into the blood. That is the then the time doesn't matter there, but how much of the diffusion is happening. So that is the rate and extent of the diffusion, and that will depend on First factor, that is temperature. Usually, you know, temperature is higher, solubility is higher, so more diffusion can happen. It's a simplest fact. You increase the temperature, like you can simply do this experiment sometime, or you might be aware of it. Like you take a beaker, you keep adding sugar until it is completely dissolved, and you keep doing this until the sugar makes a layer at the base of the beaker, and then you start heating it. Now, when it was cold or when it was at room temperature, you can no more add sugar which can be dissolved or which can be solubilized. The moment you heat the beaker, that is when the temperature will increase, and you will be able to add more and more sugar, and it will keep dissolving again up to another level. So that is how the temperature affects the solubility, which ultimately affects the diffusion. So more concentration gradient will be established if the solubility is increased, right? Then second is area of interaction. Again, if I can take an example of intestine, the intestinal area is increased because of that presence of microvilli-like structure. That is the exact intestinal lining which is present along the intestinal lining, right? So that is the area is increased, so more diffusion can happen. If the area is smaller, the rate as well as extent of diffusion both will be less, and this is very much logical. Size of the particle, again, larger the size, diffusion may not happen. A little medium size particle, diffusion will happen at a slower rate. If the particle size is smaller or smallest, then the diffusion will happen faster, depending on what is the membrane and what is the particle size. So usually these things will affect the diffusion process, and also the steepness of the concentration gradient. Now, depending on what is the concentration gradient, like what are the difference in the values of the concentration, that is how much one solution is concentrated and how much the other solution is diluted, based on this concentration gradient, the diffusion will happen. So for example, we have a rectangular box which is separated by a membrane, and on the right side, sorry, on the left side, you have let's say 5 let's say 50 gram of sugar and 10 ml of water, right? And on the other side, you have only 10 gram of sugar and 10 ml of water, right? 50 gram, 10 ml, 10 gram, 10 ml. Now, obviously, there is a concentration gradient. On left side, you have higher concentration. Right side, you have lower concentration. So, the concentration gradient is established. So, the sugar molecule, after dissolution or after solubilization, they will start moving to the right side through the membrane over the time, until both the concentrations they are equal. Now in other scenario, and this process will happen faster because concentration gradient is too high. Now in other case, instead of 50 gram, we just have 15 gram, 1 5. And in the other compartment, we have 10 gram, 10 ml. In first compartment, we have 15 gram and 10 ml. And next compartment, that is right compartment, we have 10 gram, 10 ml. Now the concentration gradient has been reduced, right? So the diffusion that will happen from this 15 gram compartment or from the left compartment to the other one will be a slower like diffusion process. So that way, the steepness of the concentration gradient really matters for the whole of the diffusion process. Okay, so that's it. So here are few examples that I have kept here for your reference. You can just check it out. It talks about all those diffusion type of examples which we see in day-to-day life. So it is a link actually. So it should take you to this. Where is it? Or did I put the wrong link? Yeah, looks like. Yeah, I guess I kept the wrong link, but I will change it then in that case. So yeah, no, it was there. It was there. 10 examples of diffusion in everyday life. Where is it?
Uh, so,
Yes.
so
Okay.
could you just after this class, could you just post the link for the drive once again on the classroom?
Can you refer to the Google Classroom link? But if in that case, I will post the link as well.
Or what?
Like if you can refer to the Google Classroom link which I had shared earlier.
Yeah, I just went through it. I can't access it. So could you just reshare that would be.
Okay, we'll do that. Okay, so that was the these were the different factors and examples. I will recheck with the link and I will share it also. It just like the examples were like if there is lot of smoke around you, then from higher concentration of the smoke to lower concentration of the smoke, this smoke will travel. So these are like kind of general example that was given in that link. Okay, so these are different factors. Then coming to a process which is called as dialysis. Again, you might have heard this terminology. Those who have kidney failure like diseases, either partial or complete failure, in those cases, dialysis is done, which is nothing but diffusion of solute across a selectively permeable membrane. So imagine a person who, like let's say, a person who has kidney failure. That means both the kidneys they are not performing the function of like filtration or dialysis in general. So what it is done is in one of the compartment blood is like transported in the sense it is connected to a system through which a blood will get transported and it will connect back to your another vein. So we have to make a kind of cut in the vein which will allow like one joint will be input of the dialysis instrument and the output will be again connected to the other end of the van. And then on the other compartment, we like in between these, we will have a semi-permeable membrane or selectively permeable membrane. And in the other compartment, we will have normal sterile solution. That is what we call as, or you can also put sterile water there. So what will happen? Your blood will have higher concentration of certain solute molecule like urea, uric acid, and so on, whichever are being passed through the urine in general. They will get transported from blood through semi-permeable membrane to the other side, that is to the sterile water side, and that way the dialysis will keep happening, that is the diffusion of the solute across the selectively permeable membrane, and it will allow uh, the flow of the specific ions or molecules to pass through it, and the rest of the blood will again keep going back to the body system. So that way the dialysis is actually done. So that is the whole process of dialysis in general, which is nothing but ultimately a diffusion process. It just we call it differently because we do it in the physiological setup. Then there are different types of diffusion that happens in general uh, throughout the plant system. One is called as simple diffusion and the other one is called as facilitated diffusion. Simple diffusion is the normal diffusion process. Now in this process, uh, the substances moves through semi-permeable membrane or in a solution without any help of transport protein. That means they don't need any machinery or any protein structure as such to get transported across the membrane. So, for example, what is being shown here is like let's say this lower side is the inner of the cell, and the cell is like little uh, like this. What you can see, and lower part is the inside. This upper part is the outside of the cell. Let's say there is higher concentration in the earlier case of the solute molecule, which is shown here in the blue. So over the time, when the solute molecule will get transported outside the cell, it will accumulate here. So that is what is being shown here. And this is called as simple diffusion, that it does not need any help from any protein or any machinery as such to get transported across the cell membrane. It can be from outside to inside or inside to outside. Yeah, for the time being we are saying from the moment it's starting from inside to outside. So earlier this higher concentration was inside, but because of the solute movement, now the higher concentration is outside the cell. The second one, sorry, let me finish this simple diffusion. So for example, the bacteria will deliver small nutrients like water and oxygen into the cytoplasm through a simple diffusion process. Now bacterial cell wall, you already know that, or the prokaryotic cell wall for that matter, that is made up of certain molecules which will allow the movement of nutrients again both ways, depending on where is the higher concentration, from that side to the side where there is lower concentration. So it can be inside to outside or from outside to inside, so depending on wherever the higher concentration is. So that is the simple diffusion process. In facilitated diffusion, this is the diffusion which is the passive movement of molecule across the cell membrane from a region of higher concentration to region of lower concentration, but by means of a carrier molecule. So it is facilitated. That means someone is doing it or helping the diffusion process to happen. And these helper molecules, they are nothing but the carrier molecules, which are ultimately protein. So you can see in this case, what you see is the like the carrier molecule or the protein molecule, which is helping this diffusion process. Again, the concentration was like if this is the inside of the cell, concentration of the solute molecule was higher inside. So normally also diffusion can happen, but this carrier molecule is helping, or the protein molecule is helping for this diffusion process to happen more and more. So that way, that is called as facilitated diffusion, which is nothing but the simple diffusion, but with the help of some carrier or protein molecule. So that is the facilitated diffusion. Third type, which we are going to see later, that is active transport. But that I will leave it to the last part of this these topics. So we'll talk about this third scenario later. So this is simple diffusion. This is facilitated diffusion. Okay, any question here? Again, anyone? I hope you people are following. These are relatively very simpler topics, and there is no much biology as such. It is more of physics, I feel sometimes. But because these processes happen in the biological system, we have to study them. Okay, so then moving forward, that is the process of osmosis. Now, it is the movement of solvent molecules. In the diffusion, it was movement of solute molecules. In this case, it is the osmosis is the movement of solvent molecule from a region of lower concentration. That is the constant. No, this is the wrong part. I should not mention this one here. Sorry, otherwise it will go completely wrong. So it is the movement of solvent molecule from the region of lower concentration, that is a dilute solution, to the region of higher concentration, that is a concentrated solution. Now in earlier case, what used to happen is the movement used to happen from concentrated solution to dilute solution, but that was the movement of solute. Now imagine the same setup, that in one compartment there is a concentrated solution, that is more solute molecule, and in the other compartment there is lower concentration, that is less number of solute molecules, which is also shown here. So this particular side where there is less number of solute molecules, which are shown in red, this is a dilute solution, and this one is the concentrated solution, that is more number of solute molecule in the same amount of solvent. This side is one side which is separated by the semi-permeable membrane, and on the other side we have more solute molecule in the same amount of solvent. Like let's say this side has 10 ml of water, this side will also have 10 ml of water, but then the number of solute here would be, let's say, 1 gram, and here it will be 10 gram. So that is the difference. right? And again, the values that I gave are hypothetical, but the logic remain the same. So movement of solvent molecule from lower concentration, that is this side, to the area or region of higher concentration through the semi-permeable membrane. So in this case, solute I is not moving at all, but rather the solvent is moving. So in this case, if this is water, which is shown in blue, water will move from this side to this side, and that is what is called as osmosis. So if you see in the second stage, water has moved from this side to the other side. Now, though you may not see increase in the level here, but you can surely see the decrease in this level. So water has decreased on this side and it has moved to the other side. So that is how the osmosis happens. Now, why is the osmosis like, why are we even studying it? Because all the human beings or even the plant systems or living beings in general, they are water based system, right? Water is the universal solvent for most of these compounds, which are called as biomolecules. And osmosis is nothing but the diffusion of this water across the selectively permeable membrane. In this case, in case of cells, the selectively permeable membrane is nothing but the cell membrane or the plasma membrane in plant or animal cell, right? And that is the diffusion of water, but not of the solute. So in osmosis, solute does not move at all. Only the solvent is moving across the membrane, and this membrane is selectively permeable membrane. For example, plant take water and minerals from the roots with the help of osmosis. Now, even though there is higher amount of solute inside the plant compared to the soil, the water is continuously getting absorbed along with the mineral and so on, right? So that is how this osmosis is happening in the plant system. Any question here in the basics of osmosis? Because students always get confused between osmosis and diffusion, but these two process, they are totally different in terms of what is moving across this membrane. And also the that so ideally what I should have written here is lower concentration, that is dilute solution, which I had written wrongly as concentrated. So this lower concentration means dilute solution, which is this one on the left hand side, and to the area of the higher concentration, that is concentrated solution, and that is the movement from left to right. So that is the whole osmosis. You can actually
It's so osmosis is a special type of diffusion. The condition is that the membrane is semi-permeable.
yeah, membrane is not permeable to the solute molecule, but it will only allow the transport of water. That is why it is semi permeable or selectively permeable. So the membrane is used in such a way that, or whatever membrane is used, it has to be only semi-permeable or selectively permeable membrane, which will allow specific molecules to transfer. Right? In this case also, in case of diffusion, like there also we have this cell membrane or plasma membrane or this selectively uh, permeable membranes, right? Where is it? Somewhere I had mentioned it. I don't see it here, but yeah, the movement happens across the membrane. Now this is a single system that they are showing, but imagine, like, if you have a partition here in the middle of the beaker, so obviously the solute molecule can transfer across the membrane. That will still work, but there the membrane will be permeable to solute. That is again a selectively permeable membrane, but to solute. And in this case, this is also selectively permeable membrane, but to solvent. Yeah, there is a difference. Cell wall that we know of the plant cell is permeable to everything. Cell membrane, that is the innermost layer, is selectively permeable. Same is the case with the plasma membrane that we have in animal cell. Plasma membrane is selectively permeable membrane, or we can also call it semi-permeable membrane. I will tell you more about these differences in the membrane structure, but I don't want to complicate it as of now, because these are relatively very simpler concept. The moment I say semi-permeable is different, selectively permeable is different, impermeable is different, freely permeable is different membrane, then it creates lot of confusion. So let me not go there as of now. Let's keep it very simple, and then at the end I will talk about these different membranes. So that is the osmosis process. Now, one of the most important factor with respect to osmosis is because it is the movement of solute. Like if I go back to this diagram, now again this solution becomes concentrated, and this becomes less concentrated comparatively again, because within this much of volume it has quite many molecules, and even within this much of volume it has so if we compare the same amount of volume for this side and this side, now this will have higher number of solute molecules. So water will again get transported on the other side, and this will keep happening until the equilibrium is reached. So that way the question comes, how long osmosis can go on? So the diffusion of the water through this membrane, that is the osmosis process, will continue until the concentration gradient of the water goes to zero. That means on the both the side, the concentration of the solvent has to be equal. In case of diffusion, it will go on until the concentration of solute is equal. In this case, it will go on until the concentration of solvent is equal on the both sides. Now, equal does not mean that it has to be 10 ml, 10 ml on both sides. It means with respect to the number of solute molecule, it has to be equal, right? So that is the like how long can this osmosis go on? And until the hydrostatic pressure of the water balances the osmotic pressure. Hydrostatic pressure is how much of the water is present in that particular space or that particular chamber, and osmotic pressure is what is the concentration gradient with respect to the solvent molecule or water molecule, that is the osmotic pressure. Hydrostatic pressure is because of the presence of water itself, it creates hydrostatic pressure. You know, like dam has a lot of hydrostatic pressure because it is stored water, right? And when you release that water through the dam, you are releasing the hydrostatic pressure. So the moment you have semi-permeable membrane, you are actually releasing that hydrostatic pressure, and it goes along the line of osmotic pressure, which is because of the number of solute molecule and the solvent molecule present in that particular compartment. So that is the osmotic pressure, that is the one which causes osmosis to happen. Now I hope this part is clear, like how long can this osmosis go on. Yeah, so with reference to like a particular cell, let's say for example plant cell, the osmosis can be of two types. That is either the inward movement of solvent molecule, or the outward movement of solvent molecule. That is depending on where the concentration of the solution is higher, the movement will happen accordingly. So endoosmosis means the inward movement. Endo refers to inward. So the inward diffusion of water through the semi-permeable membrane when the surrounding solution is less concentrated. Now, this means the outside the cell there is higher concentration. Inside the cell, surrounding solution is less concentrated. That means the semi-permeable membrane is referring to the cell membrane or the cell wall of this plant cell for the time being, and the water will keep moving inside, because inside the cell there is higher concentration and outside the cell there is lower concentration. So water is moving from the dilute solution that is outside of the cell to the inside of the cell, that is higher concentration of the solute. Yeah, and that will ultimately lead to the swelling up of the cell. So example I can show you here. in this diagram. So let's say these are resins which are put in water. Now this is plain water. So let's talk in terms of sugar content. Resins, they are sweet, so obviously there is going to be some sugar molecule. So the sugar is higher inside the resin. So that means resins, they are area of higher concentration, and this outside water is the low concentration area for the sugar. And outside there is higher concentration of water, and inside the resin, which is acting like a cell, there is a lower concentration of water. So water from its higher concentration will move to inside the resin, which is opposite to the diffusion process. That is, the higher concentration of solute is inside, lower concentration is outside. So water is moving from outside to inside the resin. Now, I hope you are following these two processes simultaneously. One is diffusion, other one is osmosis. So when we talk of diffusion, we talk of the solute movement from higher concentration to lower concentration. And in osmosis, we again talk of the same higher concentration to lower concentration, but of the solvent. And everything we talk in osmosis is in terms of the solvent molecule and not of the solute molecule. The comparison will always be with solute, but then we talk in terms of solvent molecule. So outside these resins, there is higher concentration of water and not of the sugar. Sugar will be at lowest concentration at the start, and then as and when the water will keep moving inside the resins, they will swell. Now if you look at this shape of the original shape of the resin, and the later you see the resins, they have swollen. That is because of the water is moving inside the resin, and that is what is called as endoosmosis. Now on contrary, if you have grapes which are soaked in sugar solution, right? Now sugar solution will have higher concentration of the sugar, and the grapes will have lower concentration of the sugar. And that is when the water will move from inside the grape to the outside. That is, from the area of dilute solution, that is within the grape, to the concentrated solution, that is outside the grape. And that is why the grapes will shrink in their shape, and that process is called as exoosmosis. And that is what is written here. That is exoosmosis, that is the outward diffusion of the water through a semi-permeable membrane. In our cases, we have seen an example of resins or grape. And when the surrounding solution is more concentration, the water movement will happen towards the outside. And this will cause the shrinkage of the cell, which is nothing but the flaccidity. And in case of endoosmosis, that is nothing but the turgidity, because the cell wall, they are getting stretched or they are distended to the maximum possible capacity, and that is what is your turgidity stage. And this one is the flaccidity, which is nothing but the shrinking of the cell. Okay, I guess that's good enough for today. We will talk about this different experiment in the next class and so on. I had some quiz also, but I guess the time is up. So let's do that in the next class.